Hi, I'm Scott Jernigan with Total Seminars. We here at Total Seminars do lots of videos about computing certification. If you're looking to get your A+ or Net+ certification, for example, we've got all the videos you'll need to prepare for the exams. Our certification-focused approach, however, sometimes keeps us from covering subjects that are also near and dear to our hearts, such as a survey of all the tools you might need to fix computers. Fortunately for confused geeks at hardware stores everywhere, our good friend Carey Holzman has done just such a video. Carey does all sorts of videos about a huge variety of PC topics, from installing water cooling to how to properly clean out a dusty PC with an electric leaf blower. He runs the popular podcast Tech Vets, which you can find at www.tech-vets.com. Here he is with all the tool info you'll ever need.
Hi, my name is Carey Holzman. I'm the co-host of the free podcast Tech Vets. It's available at www.tech-vets.com. So what is this podcast and what's it about? The podcast is a free, on-demand digital audio broadcast that you can listen to at your convenience any time of the day, 7 days a week. As I mentioned, it's completely free. Myself and my co-host, Mike Smith, or I'm his co-host, depending on how you look at it, both own our own computer repair businesses, and we both do two entirely different forms of work. Mike works a lot with servers and large corporations, and I work a lot with home users and small business users and try and stay away from servers as much as possible. We each have our own reasons for doing what we do. We each have different approaches on how we run our business, and we have discussion about what it's like to run a business, the details of contracts, customers, difficult problems, whether it's difficult customer problems or difficult technical problems, and how we resolve them, taxes, whether to form an LLC or an S-Corp, what you should charge, how to get customers. We talk about all of that. And we've been doing this now since about 2009, and we're well over 100 episodes. The episodes run about an hour in length, and if you're serious about wanting to pursue this as a career, then I definitely suggest you listen to all the podcasts. Go back to number 1 and work your way forward. There are no shortcuts, and you don't get to decide what you want to learn. In this business, what you think you need to know isn't always what you need to know. There's often other information you may not have considered, and the only way you're going to get that information is by listening through. The reason I bring this up is I often get asked questions that are answered, and people just go, well, tell me what episode that is. No, it's not going to work. There's no shortcuts. If that's the kind of person you are, that you can't be bothered to go back and do the research, then this isn't the line of work for you. So with that said, I want to talk about screwdrivers, both mechanical, electric, cordless, and drills, and the difference between them, and the pros and cons of each different type of screwdriver, and what you would need to run your business. One of the questions we're often asked is, I'm starting my own business, what tools do I need to buy? Really, you don't need to buy any tools. You need to get the work. That's the hardest part of any business. You can open a restaurant, you can be a great chef, but if nobody knows your restaurant exists, you're not going to have any customers, you'll have no food to cook. So it won't matter what pots and pans you buy or what ingredients you stock in the refrigerator if there's no customers. So when you get your customers, depending on what kind of problems and computers the customers have, will determine what kind of tools you're going to need to repair those problems. So ideally, you're going to at least have a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. So Phillips heads are generally in 3 sizes, a number 1, number 2, number 3. There may be others, but those are the 3 most common. The number 1 is a very narrow-headed screwdriver and isn't commonly used on desktop computers, maybe laptops. The number 2 Phillips is very common and is the only Phillips you'll need on working on a desktop computer, unless it's by a major manufacturer like Dell, HP, Compaq, Acer. Many of them use Torx bits. I know some of the HPs use a T10 Torx. If you're disassembling some hard drives, they use like a T8 Torx. So you might need a bit set, but you don't need to buy that until you actually need it. It's hard to determine what you're going to need until you have the problem to resolve. Over time, as you buy different tools to do different jobs, you'll end up with a toolkit. As a tech, the most common tool you'll use, apart from your brain, is a Phillips number 2 screwdriver. That is the most common tool. That's your best friend. Now, you don't have to buy an expensive screwdriver. You can go with a basic kit like this Belkin kit here, which is very common. Contains pretty much everything you need right in this kit. A number 1 and number 2 Phillips, a small and a larger flat edge screwdriver. There is a Torx driver here. This is a T10 that's part of this with a removable bit, with an extra bit that's double-headed with a number 2 and flat edge bit. It's got a little set of tweezers and a chip puller, which you would probably never use. There's a little part picker here. I can take this out and show it to you. I've never ever used this. I don't know when you'd use it, but I guess I'm a small person and I have small hands, so I can get my hands in places where perhaps someone else can't, and maybe they could use that tool. There are some nylon zip ties here, and then there's there's 2 sockets here. One's a 5mm, and the other one I'd have to look and see. The kits are pretty standard with the tools they have. There's a little container here. The 5mm socket's important because the motherboard standoffs, and then the screws on the back of the case where things like video cards screw in, or back in the day printers. Sometimes customers tighten those down too tight, and when you go to unscrew them, they back out the nut. And so you'd need like a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, to hold the nut, and then you need a 5mm socket to unscrew that and then tighten it back down in. So this toolkit really has everything you need for about $12, something like that, and they're sold on Amazon. And of course I'll have the link to everything you're going to see here in the video notes below the video, at least for the stuff that's still available. I've accumulated this stuff over the years, so some of it's not made anymore, some of it's been updated, and some of it's really cheap junk I wouldn't buy again, but the only way I figured that out was by buying it and using it. Now each tool is good at some things and bad at others. There's not one perfect tool out of this bunch. There are inappropriate tools, at least for computer work. This is a big powered Dewalt hammer drill. If you're using this on computers, you shouldn't be working on computers. Okay. Do you have what it takes? Well, if you're using a hammer drill that plugs into the wall to screw and unscrew screws out of your computer, no. The next drill over here is just a cheap $20, not even $20, I think this is a $12 drill from a local hardware store. They're around the United States, called Harbor Freight Tools. There's no controllable clutch on this, so you will have the same problem as you will with a hammer drill, and that this will shear the heads right off the screws. Way too much tension, way too much torque, inappropriate for computer work. Where these fit into computer work would be if you're hanging up a server rack and you need to drill 3-inch tapping screws into a stud. And a lot of battery powered drivers will still do that, but at least if you've got a driver like this, you don't have to worry about your batteries running out. So as you can see, these have been used, and not just for computer work. I've done work around the house with them. They are heavy duty and not to be used on a desktop computer, certainly not a laptop. I didn't need to tell you that, did I? This is the equivalent cordless drill from Dewalt. This does have a clutch on it. So the clutch means you can adjust this top part here so that it won't over tighten. It'll hit the clutch and then it'll start making this noise, this chug, 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 chug. And what that noise is it's disengaging the chuck from the motor. So the motor's still spinning, but there's no more tension, there's no more rotation on the bit. So that way you can't over tighten. So this could be used safely if lowered to a low enough torque, which would probably be 1 or 2, to remove and install screws. But it's a bit bulky, it's a bit heavy, it's a bit loud. However, what's nice about it is it's a drill, which means that the more you squeeze the trigger, the faster it goes. By definition, that's a drill. Now, a driver will have a set speed, or it may have 2 set speeds. For example, this driver here spins at 1 speed when the button's pressed. and then it's got a little button to switch it from a high RPM to a low RPM, but I have no way of controlling it other than that. So with a drill, you can actually slow it down to a crawl or speed it way up. Okay, so that will work with the clutch set properly on working on desktop computers. This is an impact driver, and it shares the same heavy lead acid battery as this tool. This is also from Harbor Freight Tools. It's called a Drill Master. And even though it has a bit socket, and I've put a screwdriver bit on this, you would never use an impact driver on a desktop computer or a laptop computer. Never, never. Again, this would be more for server rack installations, things where you're going, putting things into walls, like, you know, putting long screws into walls, into studs, into steel bases and things like that. If you're not doing that kind of work, you don't need this kind of driver. This cordless driver here is the cheaper version of this Dewalt. This Dewalt, if you see the yellow tools, they're generally pretty expensive. This was pretty inexpensive. The problem that we have with it is, let's see if I can if I take this bit out. You see I've got a little magnetic extension with the number 2 Phillips bit on it. What you do is you, like any drill, when you put your bit in, you hold the chuck and then it tightens around the bit. Well, when it does that, it often doesn't hold it straight. So when you go to screw something in, it just kind of wobbles about. It doesn't stay steady. I don't know how much of that you can see, but it's not good for computer work. Also big, also heavy. Convenient that it's got a place up here for a couple extra bits, stuff like that. However, there are better things and cheaper things that you can use for working on PCs. But I want to get the big tools out of the way because, believe it or not, they do have their place, as I previously mentioned, just not in a desktop PC or a laptop. Now, you don't have to spend a lot of money unless you're doing this a lot, and it's worth the investment. It is, after all, a business, and it can be a tax deduction for you. The driver you see me most use when I use a mechanical driver is a driver I got many, many years ago, probably 92, 93. And this is made by Jensen Tools, and it costs all of about $7. And it ships without any bits, but you can just put some bits in the handle. Go buy some bits at the hardware store, stick them in the handle. It's magnetized. It's got a long enough extension that in most computers, this is all I need. I don't have to worry about the batteries running out or having to charge it, and it's always available as my backup screwdriver. But because I do a lot of computer work, I prefer to use a electric or cordless screwdriver. Well, I guess they're all cordless. It would be electric, I guess. A step up from this would be the Snap-on tools, which ratchets. It also holds bits in the handle. And of course it comes with bits, but it should at a $75 price tag, which I think is way overpriced. I also think the screwdriver's too big and is difficult to use in tight spaces. So I think the cheaper screwdriver is the best bet, and I can't say enough good about this little screwdriver. And I'll have a link to this in the video notes below, of course, to both of those. Or I don't think Snap-on makes this particular model anymore, but they make one equivalent, and I'll put the equivalent there. If you're going to be working on laptops, then you definitely want to get one of these small precision jeweler's type screwdrivers. So here's a whole kit that's got an extension on it, it's got a number of different bits, and it's got a ratcheting driver handle. Keep in mind that the screws that hold in a laptop are often very, very tiny and strip very, very easily. And I don't mean just strip out from the laptop itself, but the head. And once the head strips out, then you need a whole nother tool to get that and pull it out. So these are fairly inexpensive. If you're going to do a lot of work on laptops, or any work on laptops really, it's beneficial to invest, you know, $10, $15 in a precision driver kit just like that. And if you're going to dedicate working on laptops and you're going to do it all day, you can actually get a little battery powered electric. I don't know how well you can see that. It's got a switch on the back here, forward, back, and it'll actually stay on, so you don't have to hold the button in if you're taking out a long screw that's, you know, that's really small. It just runs off batteries. This is made by a company called General. I believe I got this at Amazon, and I'll put a link to it, of course, as I mentioned, for everything. The least expensive electric driver that I think is worth considering is the Black & Decker. I believe this is the DP240, and I could have that model wrong, but I'll correct it in the links below. Now, you just get the driver, and you get, I think there's like a standard bit. I always put a little 3-inch extension on it that's magnetized. This one's made by Cobalt, and then I throw a number 2 Phillips bit on that, and to keep it magnetized makes it real easy to hold the bit, hold the screw onto the bit. Magnets aren't going to hurt your computer. Don't worry about that. In fact, it's preferred so that you don't drop a screw and end up scratching your motherboard. And of course, that's why we always work on a computer with it unplugged, so you don't short anything out by mistake. So these run about $20, $25. It has no adapter or charger that's separate. It's all built into the unit. You just plug this into the wall. You don't have to worry about overcharging it. Just plug it in, leave it there. So if you don't work on computers very often, this is always ready when you are. It won't run when the prongs are out. So you close the prongs down, and then you've got a forward and backward switch. It runs at 1 speed, and it's actually kind of slow, but it won't over torque the screws. So you can sit there and hold this on until the screw won't turn anymore, and it won't strip the screw out, and it won't shear the screw head off like some of these bigger tools will do. On the other hand, it's imprecise in that you're not really torquing everything down to the same spec. There is a little lock mechanism here that if you turn this, you can then use it as a mechanical screwdriver. So if your battery should die, or if you need to tighten the screw down tighter, such as say on the back of a power supply, you can do it by hand that way. So if you're on a budget, that's worth considering. But for about $10 or $15 more, you can get this Ryobi. Now this Ryobi is this gun-shaped driver. It's lithium, it's a 4-volt driver. This one's an HP41L. They've modified it slightly because the Ryobi comes with this bag, and in the bag is a charger, and the charger just has a cable that plugs into the bottom here. The newer version has a little cap that gets removed and the battery comes out, and there's a separate proper charger. Kind of did it the right way. I don't really like this Ryobi. Some people really like it. I don't like it. There's a couple reasons I don't. One, it's got this annoying light on the front of it. 2, very loud. 3, it spins too slow. Sit there all day waiting for the thing to tighten up. You've got your forward reverse switch right here. There's a clutch, so you can set your clutch so that it doesn't over tighten. When the clutch engages, it makes even more racket. Chug, 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 chug. So if you're on a budget, that's all you can afford. It's good for what it costs. That's about the best I can say about it. I bought it. I really never use it. Sometimes I just use it because I bought it and I figure I might as well use it, right? Because get some money that I invested out of it. But I lose my patience with it, and I just think there's much better available than this Ryobi. When I started working on computers back in '91, the company I worked for provided us with screwdrivers that are exactly like this one. Exactly, down to the last detail. This is made by a company called Milwaukee Tools. And you'll see the bit hole here where the bit goes in is actually flush with the top. It doesn't stick out like it does on all the other drivers. I don't know what significance that has, but it's just an interesting design. The driver has a switch for high and low RPM speeds. It's got a lock, so you can lock the spindle so you can spin it by your hand and not, have the motor sit there and spin. Forward and reverse is right here on the side, so it's right or left-handed easily. In fact, all these are right or left-handed. The driver bends into a gun shape, as you can see, if you prefer that, or it's just easier or more comfortable. And there is a adjustable clutch on the top. And again, just like all the other clutches, when it engages, it makes a little bit of a noise. It also doesn't help your battery life much. Battery just pops right out of the bottom. And this is a nickel cadmium battery. But what I find so fascinating is, as fast as things evolve in the world of electronics, this is the exact same driver that I was using in 1991, but I just bought it a year ago or so. So they haven't changed the design, and that tells me if they're not changing the design, they must have got it right. I mean, it's exactly the same. Your charger just looks like this. Just plugs into the wall, your battery goes in, and when your light goes off, your battery's charged. Battery takes a couple hours to charge, and you can't overcharge it. I mean, you can just leave it in and it shuts itself off. This is a fairly expensive driver. It's, I believe, right around $90, something like that. Could be a little more. You know, the prices fluctuate, but I really believe you get what you pay for with it. And you often see me use this driver in some of my older videos. You've also seen me use this driver in some of my older videos. In my newer videos, you don't see me use either one. What you've seen me use in some of my newer videos is this Panasonic driver. And you can see it's a little bit larger, maybe about 2 inches larger. Clutch on top, pretty much same design. Lock to turn the driver manually. High and low speed. This is an EY6225. It's a 3.6 volt nickel cadmium battery. Battery comes out of the bottom. What I liked about this one is it charges in under 15 minutes. Super fast charge. And when the clutch engages, the driver shuts off, which is really, really cool, and it saves your battery and it makes less noise. So at first when I got this driver, I didn't care much for it because I thought it went too fast. It was either too fast or too slow. It's got a 200 RPM speed on the low side and a 600 RPM speed on the high side. But now that I've gotten used to it, anything less than that 600 RPM when I'm taking screws out is too slow. I mean, it just takes screws out quickly and I can get on with my job. You can't buy this driver anymore. It's not available. So what I did is I bought the current version of the same driver, which is the EY7410. Now this is lithium ion, and it comes in a box like this, and in the box is an extra battery, the charger, and the driver, and there's a couple bits, and then the box also has a little top part here that opens up and you can put stuff in there. I've got, you know, the bits that came with it I just threw in there. I don't use the bits that come with them. And so if you're going to travel around with it, it's pretty nice. It's a 1.5 amp hour lithium ion. They say it's a drill and driver. Technically it's just a driver. You can't really define it as a drill because you can't control the speed. That said, you know, you have a choice of 200 RPM or 600 RPM. This is rubberized, whereas this is all just plastic and kind of slippery. This has more of a grip to it. Battery comes out of the bottom, just like the previous model. The battery is quite a bit smaller. The battery life is hard to determine on these because I can build computers all day for 2-3 days in a row without having to charge these up. So, you know, for regular ordinary work that you're doing, say for a customer, if you put your battery on its charger every night, you're good to go. This does have a low battery light on it that'll come on. And the reason they do that is with lithium ion batteries, you never want to completely drain them or you ruin the battery. So when the low battery light comes on, you want to make sure that you switch batteries or switch screwdrivers. And you don't have to put the battery on a charger right away, but you want to put it on a charger before you use it again. One of the other things that varies on the new Panasonic model is it's got a work light on it. And if you push the little button right there, you'll see the light comes on. So it'll shine in the area that you're working on. Obviously, if it's in a stick shape, that light shining down won't help you much. It is an LED light, so it doesn't really use much of your battery power, and you just push the button again to turn it off. I think that's a pretty nice feature since you could also use it as like a flashlight in a dark place versus having to run the driver to get the light to come on. So this is one of the, if not the most expensive driver of the bunch. And you got to be careful when you're shopping around for a good price on these because there are places that will sell you the driver only or the driver and the battery and won't include the charger. And to buy the charger separately, this is actually the charger for this unit. But the charger that this unit comes with is $75 sold separately. So you're actually getting a better value if you buy the entire kit. And the entire kit's probably right around $130, $140. So again, if you're doing a lot of computer work, it might add up to make sense to do that. Now at the local hardware store, and also available at Amazon, is an Hitachi brand, a cordless electric screwdriver. I gotta quit calling them cordless. The day I see a corded screwdriver. Well, anyway, it's a similar design. It's got the lock, high, low speed, 200, 600 RPM, righties, tighties, lefties, loosies, clutch on the top, little button right here to turn a work light on. So the light is up front, so it doesn't matter which way you hold the driver. And that way, the light is available without having to use the driver, just as I demonstrated. The light is LED, doesn't consume much of your battery. It is also lithium ion, and it sells for right around $75. So for value, it's a better value than the Panasonic. When you talk about twice the money, you don't really get twice the driver. I still prefer the Panasonic. However, depending on what your budget allows for, this may be an extravagant purchase for you, or a significant investment in your business. This model of this driver is a DB3D L2. It's a 3.6 volt. And it's funny, they do call it a cordless driver, so it's not just me making it up. And again, they also say it's a drill. I think the reason they're saying it's also a drill is one of the clutch settings is to not use a clutch at all. So it runs like a drill in the sense that there's no clutch. On the other hand, I've got a drill here that has a clutch, and it's nothing but a drill. So usually, I don't think it says it's a drill and driver. Oh, it does. It says it's a cordless drill and driver. Well, there you go. See, even I'm learning something. Now, out of all the drivers I've got here, this bad mamma jamma right here is the Dewalt DW920. Now, let me tell you about the Dewalt DW920. It's big, okay? As you can see, this bad boy is big. And it's really designed for construction workers, but it has the clutch on it. It's got a battery that lasts forever. It comes in one of the smaller suitcase you see back there, which includes the charger, an extra battery. It folds in half. You push this little release, and it folds down into the gun shape. You can control the speed. The more you squeeze the trigger, the faster it goes. It is a proper drill. And if you look at the inside, you can see sparks going on inside there when the motor spins. Actually, the sparks are going on right in there. I could watch that all day. Anyway, old Sparky here has been with me quite a while. It's a bit heavy. It's a bit too big. But if you get used to it, for 75 bucks, I think is what these sell for the 2 batteries, the charger, the case, the whole thing. You can use this to fix stuff around your house. You can use this to fix computers. You can use this to beat a robber over the head. It is just a workhorse of a driver. Really, this is a drill. The only bad thing about it is its weight and overall size, but again, you can get used to that unless you're working on really small cases where it gets in your way. If you're trying to get in sideways, that could be a problem, but it makes light work out of taking out and installing screws. And again, having that ability to slow that down and speed it up combined with the clutch, it's just brilliant. Also, there's a little spot here on each side to hold extra bits. However, again, I don't use those bits. Here I've got a 6-inch magnetic number 2 Phillips. And I think for value, this DeWalt DW920 just can't be beat. Nothing comes close to it. Because of its weight and cumbersome nature of working on computers with it, I'm going to fall back and say you'll probably see me use this Panasonic a lot more in the future on my future videos, simply because it's very similar to the previous model that I've been getting used to. But for the benefit of the viewer, that if they want to buy it, you can't buy this one anymore. So I'll use this one and put a link to it in future videos for people who want to get the same driver I'm getting. And of course, it's got to be the most expensive one of the bunch, right? But go figure. When we talk about magnetized screwdrivers, let's say you buy one of these kits. And let's say this number 2 Phillips here, I think I've got a screw laying around here somewhere. This number 2 Phillips out of the box is not magnetized. I don't know how well I can show this to you. I'll just set it on this driver. You say I can't do anything with that. But you can buy a magnetizer, demagnetizer for screwdrivers, and I'll put a link to this for Amazon. And it's just kind of this rubbery magnet thing, and these have been around since the 80s. And what you do is you just put your screwdriver through there and run it through a few times, and that magnetizes it, and now I can reach over and pick that screw up. And if you decide you don't want it magnetized anymore, if you run the screwdriver on the outside of it, that demagnetizes it. Screwdriver is not magnetized anymore. You see, it's like magnet magic. Say that 10 times fast. These aren't very expensive, $3 or $4 or $5, something like that, and they're good to have on hand to magnetize drivers that are not magnetized. But if you're just starting out, you're not making any money, you don't have much money, you could magnetize your screwdriver by taking an old hard drive. So here's an old hard drive. Pull the cover off of it, and you'll see on this model, there were 3 screws on each side, and there was one hidden under the label. Pull that cover off. Right here is a very, very strong magnet. Now, if there was ever a place you wouldn't want a magnet, you'd think it would be next to your magnetic media. So, there's the inside of your drive, that platter spins, the heads move back and forth. But if you disassemble this, because it's a bad drive anyway, what are you going to do with it? Take this apart, and you can run your screwdriver, just rub your screwdriver on that magnet, and that will magnetize your screwdriver. I didn't run it on there very much, so it's got a little magnetic hold to it right now. So it's just that available and that easy for you to do that without having to invest in special proprietary tools that you won't use very often. So something to keep in mind. It just gives another use to an old hard drive. And if you take that part out and put it in your toolkit and have it with you, should your screwdriver lose its magnetism, you can just charge it up again at any available time. A couple of the other tools that you see here out on the table that I want to mention is these voltage detectors. These both do the same job. I just happen to have 2 of them. And if you're going to be working, for example, I was doing some wiring in new construction. So they've got electrical wires hanging down as the construction workers are walking around, and I don't want to be electrocuted. Call me funny that way, but I don't want to be electrocuted. So if you have one of these, and they're very inexpensive, I think they're $10 or between $10 and $20 for most of them. Now the way these work is if you have an electrical cable, say you're running some network cable, and there's an electrical cable in the wall and it's not terminated. Is it live? How do you know? Well, I suppose you could touch it and get the shock of your life, or you can get a voltage detector and just run it next to the cable. If the cable's plugged into power, it'll detect that power. Now this one is sold at Harbor Freight Tools. It's pretty inexpensive. This one's made by Greenlee, and Greenlee is a bigger name company. This is a GT11 voltage detector, and you just get it close to your source, and you'll know that this is a live cable. If this cable were unplugged, so if I unplug this cable, nothing happens, right? The unit is on, nothing happens. In fact, just to prove it to you, I'm just going to hold it right like that, and I'm going to plug this in. And there it is. So, a nice little safety tool to have also if you're just doing some handyman work around the house, especially if you're anywhere around electrical wires like a fuse box, things like that. It's an inexpensive tool. It's great to have on hand. You'll see I use a lot of bit extensions. Here's a bit extension here. The bit extensions are magnetized, so I don't have to worry about my bits being magnetized. They become magnetized when they're plugged into the bit extension. You can also buy the whole bit being, 6-inch long bits if you want, and I recommend getting the ones that are magnetized. I also have a 5mm bit, so that anytime I'm working on those motherboard standoffs or the screws that are on the back, the little hex nuts that are on the back of the where the I/O shield is on the back of the case, that's always available to me, and I can just pop out whatever bit I've got, drop this one in, and now I'm able to do that work, and it doesn't take up much room in a toolbox. And those bits are either sold as part of a kit, some places sell them individually, but that's a 5mm bit that you need for that. The last tool that you would use a lot of in doing computer repair is a flashlight. So I did a review of these line of flashlights from a company called Spotlight. It doesn't really matter what brand you use or how big or how small it is. That's all a preference to you. So this spotlight is a very bright LED, and it's great because it's pocket size. I can have it with me. I like the button, the way it's situated, that it won't turn on accidentally in my toolbox, because that would suck that it would be on in my toolbox and 3 days later I go to use it and the battery's dead. Those are some things to consider. Flashlights nowadays are so inexpensive. There's no sense not having a couple. I probably have about 10 or 15 of them laying around. Whether you get one that takes batteries or you get one that plugs in the wall and charges, there's so many out there. That's really a personal decision for you to make. I will put a link to my video review of the Spotlight flashlights to give you an idea of the different sizes and features that are available. Primarily the concern is overall size and brightness, the number of lumens the light emits. I don't know why you'd be up in an attic or in a cave working on a computer where you'd need a super bright light, but you know, maybe you have vision problems and whatever, or maybe just that's your preference. So no real right or wrong solution that you pick for a flashlight, just have one. Now the last thing I want to discuss in this video is professionalism. If you want to get into this business and you're going to work in a corporate environment and you're going to deal with customers, in other words, you're not going to be in a server room somewhere like an IT administrator, but if you're going to be dealing with customers, managers, and other employees of the company, then you need to be professional. I mean, that means having your hair combed, taking a shower every day so you don't stink, and wearing deodorant. It means that you don't have piercings on your face when you're dealing with the corporate environment. Preferably, you're not going to have visible tattoos. That can actually prevent you from getting a job working with people. In other words, if they're going to stick you in a basement somewhere, they don't care. You go do what you want. Go pierce your tongue, do what you want. If you want to do those things, consider a different career. You don't often see, in fact, I've never seen a corporate CEO with a big neck tattoo. I've never seen that. I've never seen the CEO of Ford or GM or Chrysler come out and have his nose pierced or have a mohawk. You don't see that. So that's not to say you can't. You do what you want. But if you want to be hired, you want to increase your chances of being hired, I should say, in a position that you're going to be dealing with the end users, and especially if you're self-employed, you should dress nice, look nice, brush your teeth, take a breath mint if you need to, be professional. Now, doesn't mean you can't have tattoos. I have a tattoo, my farmer tan. If I roll my sleeve up, I get my sleeve up, you'll see I've got a tattoo up here. Now this tattoo is very meaningful to me, it's very special to me, and it's nobody's business. So it's discreet. Nobody knows I've got it. It's very important to me that I have it, and what it signifies to me, I can't express into words. But what I will say is, if I were to get another tattoo, it would go somewhere discreet. And again, I want to emphasize, this is nothing you have to do. However, you're going to be judged, whether it's fair or not, based on how you look. And if you look like a stereotypical thug, they may not want you interfacing with their customers, the company, or their employees that are, the average employees. If you're going to be an IT administrator and you're put away down in a basement somewhere, that's a different story entirely. So it really depends where you want to go with your career. For that matter, I've never really seen a surgeon with, tattoos, sleeve tattoos up and down his arms and piercings all over his face. And I'm not sure how comfortable I would be having a surgeon like that operate on me. Would you? Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. But that's the problem we run into, because just because you would doesn't mean somebody else would. So, something to keep in mind. I also want to show you this short video about professionalism from Mike Myers. And Mike works for a company that does training for A+ certification and has written a number of A+ certification books, the #1 selling books to prep you for A+ certification.
It's not enough to simply be a good technician today. For those of you who are just getting started into the industry, especially you younger folks, I know that it's fantastic that you can walk around with cool sunglasses on, listening to your latest tunes on your iPhone, maybe enjoying that nice piece of pizza. But the reality is that in a corporate environment, you have to give yourself a professional appearance and a professional demeanor. These are required for those of us who trust you to work on our computers. Can I help you?
Oh, no, just a tech hanging out.
Oh man, you're not a tech, but you can be. Meet Ford Pearson. Ford is a great tech and is looking forward to getting out into the real world and start doing some computer repair and making those big bucks. But before we let him do that, well, Ford, how do you feel about your appearance right now? Pretty groovy, huh? Yeah. Well, before we do anything else, let's talk about toning a few things down. First of all, I love your hair. Fantastic. But unfortunately, as much as these new tousled hairstyles are good for out in the social engagements, in a corporate environment, we might want to drag a comb through that a little bit. Would you mind? Oh, and speaking of cool, love those shades. Feeling pretty good about those? Yeah, but unfortunately for us, we're going to be working indoors most of the time. So while those shades might be great out on the beach, I think for the corporate environment, we're going to ditch those shades here in just a minute, okay? Ah, pretty blue eyes. And on top of all that cool, I love that stubble look you got there. You must work hard to get that look just like that, huh? Well, I think you and Mr. Razor are going to have a little meeting here shortly. And hey, while we're talking about that, check those pits for me, will you, bud? Yeah, a little pungent, huh? Okay, well, we know what to do about that. We'll catch that in just a minute. Hey, I dig that shirt. Is that a Donkey Kong reference? Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. Unfortunately, in a professional environment, t-shirts, groovy torn-up jeans, and casual shoes are probably not exactly what we're looking for. Hey Ford, why don't we go through, do a bit of a transformation, and let's see how a professional Ford looks. Ah, the new and improved Ford. Hey, you look a lot better there, buddy. Feeling better? How about those pits? Hey, okay, way to go. Well, Ford, I think I love your outfit. Nice white shirt, khaki pants, belt, shoes. You're looking like one quality technician there. I'd certainly trust you with my raid array. But a couple of things we need to deal with here. First of all, did you do that hair all slicked down just for me? There's nothing wrong with modern hairstyles. You didn't have to go to the 50s look just to impress me, but it does look good. And while we're at it, the bow tie is a nice touch, but unless your company absolutely requires a particular type of neckwear, which they shouldn't, we can just go with an open collar. You look good, but there's one small problem, and that's the attitude. Straighten up there a little bit, mister. There you go. And a smile and a proper bit of presentation goes a long way.
I want to give a quick shout out and thanks to Mike Myers and Dudley Leamer over at Total Seminars for permitting me to share that video with you. As a reminder, all the links for all the tools that I've shown in this video, at least the ones that are still available for sale, are all in the video notes below the video. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please click the like button. That tells me you want to see more videos like this. When I look at my channel and I see certain videos have 0 likes or fewer likes and other videos have a ton of likes, I know you want to see more videos like that and less videos like the other. So you can help control the direction of the channel and what videos you're going to see in the future by clicking that like button or not. Well, that's about it for this video. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.